Hello, hello, hello. We are on the air for our second edition of 1620 The Zone's Husker Gridiron halftime program. There's Josh Peterson. I'm John Bishop. Thanks for joining us as Nebraska with a 27-6 lead at the break. We expected to see Luke McCaffrey. We have seen Luke McCaffrey, and we have seen a spark in this offense, but we've also seen some big plays turned in by Nebraska's defense today as they have held Penn State to 6 points, and it's kind of a role reversal from what we've seen recently with Nebraska struggling in the red zone. Today, it's more Penn State having issues in the red zone, which is definitely a positive sign.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think the defense is the story of the first half. I imagine a lot of people want to talk about Luke and what he has done so far, 10 for 15, 132 yards, a touchdown through the air. Of course, a lot of that on that pop pass to Xavier Betts for 45. But for me, it's the defense. It's defense and field position. Nebraska, you look at the field position that they have had in this game. You know, they only had to drive 35 yards for the field goal that they just had to end the half. They drove 10 yards to get the field goal to make it 10-7 after the turnover. And how about that play? That Deontay Williams play, man. I still can't get over just the savvy move of him, because in watching it live, it's like, oh, hey, that's a really nice defensive play. But then you see the replay, and you know exactly what he was doing as he reaches his hand around and pokes the ball out. Just a really good first half for the defense. And, I mean, darn near forcing James Franklin to have to put Sean Clifford on the bench. And I'll add this too, John. That first drive, you know, he had a pass where it was to the sidelines and it was caught by Penn State. But I remember watching that in the moment thinking, oh, boy, if he throws it across the field like that again, Nebraska might be able to take advantage. I didn't think that they'd take advantage on that literal drive on that nice interception there by Cam Taylor-Britt.
Well, the pass obviously sailed on him. He did not – I don't know if he had issues with the wind or if he's got issues with his arm, whatever the case may be, but that ball easily sailed on him. And Cam Taylor-Britt made a nice read on it right off the jump, and it made it look like it was a pass intended for him. So Nebraska taking advantage of turnovers, which, you know, you have to do in games like this. Also, something that was a little bit of, you know, a nice change of pace. Nebraska finished a dirty drive. They got a 5-yard illegal procedure penalty, illegal motion penalty, false start is the word I'm looking for. Their seventh of the year, by the way. I'm keeping track now of all their false starts. They've had 7 this year, but McCaffrey immediately took that 3rd and 10, which would have been a 3rd and 5, and executed a nice run to the edge. And I think that's one of the things you see that's the difference between McCaffrey and Martinez. While Martinez is a good runner, don't get me wrong, McCaffrey is just a little bit quicker and can hit the corner faster than Martinez did. So had the roles been reversed, I don't know if Martinez can hit the corner and get to the sideline and get to the sticks as quickly as McCaffrey did. But, you know, what we've seen so far, we've seen the utilization of Wan'Dale Robinson. We had the prop bet yesterday, Josh, on the show. You know, originally it was going to be a 5.5 touches. I bumped it up to 6.5 touches. Well, we could have gone to 10.5 touches, and it still would not have been enough, because in the first half, the total so far, Robinson 8 carries, 26 yards. He's also caught 4 passes for 10. So he's had 12 touches so far. Granted, not a lot of yards, not a great per yard average.
Yeah, only 3 yards a play, 36 total yards for Wan'Dale. So yeah, the yards per touch isn't there. But like you said, they're really trying to get him the ball. Aaron says, what is this uplifting emotion I'm feeling during a Nebraska game? Man, it's so funny too. All week long, I kind of was wondering internally what team would look like they quit more, Nebraska or Penn State, because that's been a part of the conversation, mainly in Happy Valley. Not so much around here in terms of straight up quitting. But boy, at times did Penn State just look like they did not want to be there. And you got to give credit to Nebraska for taking advantage of that. Going back to Luke too, John, I think it's obvious. Like, this is the most obvious statement. The offense is faster. It looks faster. They are moving the ball quicker down the field. And I think you said it too at the beginning of that previous discussion. To overcome a penalty on that first drive, I know it was only 5 yards, but given how Nebraska has played so far this season and how drives seemingly end at one penalty, no matter if it's a 15-yarder or a 5-yarder. For them to overcome that, I mean, right then it's like, ooh, is this going to end up being a really good day for the Huskers? That was a really nice job to overcome that. And then, look, they've had a couple of other mistakes. There was the Cade Warner drop in the end zone. I know it wasn't a pretty throw from Luke McCaffrey, but like things haven't been perfect for Nebraska. And I know Penn State fans are saying, hey, things haven't been perfect for us, but things have not been perfect for Nebraska. And yet they're up by 21. It looks like a different team. We're seeing different guys get their hands on the ball. We're seeing different guys get involved. You obviously just mentioned Wandale. We already talked about Xavier Betts. We saw Marvin Scott there on the drive at the end of the first half. He already has 4 carries, only for 10 yards, but he has one more carry than Dedrick Mills. Tompkins has a carry for a couple of yards. So it does look like a different version of Nebraska than we've seen through a couple weeks.
And how about Betts? Xavier Betts with the 45-yard, and it does go into the books as a pass, very easy, quick flip pass forward, but that is a touchdown pass for Luke McCaffrey. But
first touchdown pass of the year, by the way, for Nebraska.
Yes, but those of you who didn't get a chance to see him in high school, I mean, he glides. It doesn't look like he runs very fast. And as I'm watching the play develop, I'm like, he's going to get caught. No, he's not going to. You look at the effort, and it looks like he's going to get caught, but he just glides to the end zone. He really hit that corner. It was exciting to see, and you wonder about what's going to happen with Omar Manning. Apparently, he wasn't on the field today, or at least he wasn't warming up with the team. Yeah. But to see Xavier Betts get involved early, even though it was a pretty simple play, but it was nice to see just finding ways to get those guys involved in the offense. I think you're going to see a lot of exciting things from Xavier Betts. All in all, really a very solid first half when you look at what Nebraska has done. And here's the best part, Josh. The only thing that Penn State can do right now with any success is run the ball. They've done a fairly good job of running the ball in the first half. They've out-yarded Nebraska 125-71. Take a look at the yards per carry average. They're averaging 4.5, which isn't super. But if this were a close game, and if I were James Franklin, I would be like, just pound the ball at them, because it seems like they're getting a good push up at the line of scrimmage, and they're getting at least 2 to 3 yards initially from the push, and then maybe make a couple of yards after that. But now you're down by 21 points. Don't know how much patience Penn State is going to be able to have, and we're going to see if Will Levis, if they're going to trust him throwing the ball. He's just 2 for 5 in the first half, but you're down 21 points, and so now if you're Nebraska, you've got to expect that they're going to try to find ways to get the ball down the field through the air, and no catches in the first half for Penn State's number one receiver in the Big Ten, or maybe not Big Ten, but number 10 receiver in the country, Jahan Dotson in the first half. No target. Well, I guess he does have one target for 6. He's got 1 for 6. There it is.
They took him out of the game right there.
They did. They took him out of the game, and so this has been very successful on the back end of the defense so far, because I talked about it yesterday in the keys. Where's the help going to come from? Because you got to expect they're going to try to find him. Well, they haven't been able to. Only 1 catch for 6 yards.
They've done a really good job. I think, John, this is going to be a pretty obvious statement, but Penn State gets the ball first coming out. That is the drive. I think if they go down and score, especially a touchdown, if they make it a 2-touchdown game, then I think that following drive for Nebraska, it puts them in a really interesting position, and I think there's going to be a lot of pressure. If Nebraska can hold them, even if they can only hold them to 3, but especially if they get a stop and Penn State doesn't score, I don't want to say the game is done, but it feels like it would be darn near pretty close, just because of what you just mentioned. Is Penn State going to keep rushing the football, because that is where they're having success? Sean Clifford ended up with 19 yards. Will Levis ended up with 15 yards. You got some sacks in there as well, helping take the average down. But that's the one part of the game that they seem to do pretty well. But man, Nebraska, they bowed up. They bowed up when Penn State moved the ball both times that they get into the red zone. And that was another one of the keys yesterday, John, is what would happen in the red zone. Nebraska, they've gotten into the red zone. They have come away with some touchdowns. Penn State has gotten into the red zone. They have come away with field goals. And so you add, right there, you're talking about a swing of 4 points per touchdown versus a field goal. Then you add in the couple of turnovers, and suddenly a game that at times it looked like, both teams might trade punches. The score obviously doesn't indicate that because Penn State does not get touchdowns, and then those 2 turnovers, absolutely brutal. Nebraska has done an awesome job at taking advantage of it because that was one of those things where I thought if they could take advantage of the red zone, they could take advantage of a couple of turnovers. It's just another sneaky way to get those yards, to get those points. Speaking of hidden yardage, the kickoff out of bounds as well for Penn State. So yes. Nebraska's done a really good job. They played it's not the perfect game, obviously, but a relatively clean game for Nebraska. Only 3 penalties for 20 yards. Penn State, the same amount of penalties, but for 35 yards. And so you end up looking at the box score right now. 12 first downs for Penn State, 11 for Nebraska, 191 yards, 203. It is really even, but man, you get down to the bottom and you see those 2 turnovers, and then you go back once again to the red zone, and that's how Nebraska has a 3-touchdown lead.
We've had a lot of folks asking us in the comment section, Brett among many, asking why is Nebraska on the west sideline? We believe it is because Scott Frost wants to keep guys from being able to, from the press box, look down and look at Nebraska's signaling. That's what we've been told. Now, maybe it'll be asked during the post game and we'll get the definitive answer, but I believe it is to keep the coaches from the press box to looking across the field. It's a lot harder to decipher from behind what the signals are versus from in front, because obviously the team has to be able to see what happened. I was able to look it up today. It's the first time, stop me if you've heard this before, first time since Bill Jennings.
Oh, no, another streak.
That Nebraska has used the west sideline. Bob Devaney moved Nebraska to the east sideline with his very first game in 1962. And outside of, obviously, spring games, Nebraska has never occupied the west sideline at Memorial Stadium in over 50 years, almost 60 years. So that's one of the things that they have done to kind of change things up a little bit. You may have also noticed a little bit of a tweak. I think it was a mistake. After the first touchdown, the PA system played "There Is No Place Like Nebraska" instead of "Hail Varsity." They turned it around, but they've corrected it since. My sister, who was in the band, Josh's favorite band, by the way, was very triggered by this, but apparently that was just an error upstairs in the booth. So
good take from Carla. Very good take. I wonder too, John, the West Stadium thing, the West Sideline thing. There's been a lot of talk over the last few years. As Nebraska's gotten worse, people find other things to complain about, like as maybe reasons why. But during those early season games when it's really warm, that sun beats right down onto the East Stadium. And so there have been fans who have said, why not move them to the West Stadium so it's a little cooler? Now, obviously, the first home game for Nebraska this year.
It's November.
It's November 14th, so they're not even going to take advantage of the whole warm weather thing. But I do wonder if that could play a part in it too, moving forward. Happy that the PA band got things figured out because, come on, you got to have Hail Varsity after the touchdowns. What are you doing?
Exactly. We're live on Stibbs TV. We've actually sent out the link to our backdoor studio so you can actually join us here on the video stream. And I see we've got a couple of takers already. How about this? The official weathermen of the program. Travis Klineski from KSNB Channel 4. Travis, how you doing?
Doing very good. I missed the first part of the game because my daughter was finishing up a basketball game, but liking what I see so far. I was being kind of pessimistic, wanted to see this team prove it first before going with the Huskers. But I tell you what, it looks good so far. I wonder if Penn State is kind of shutting down for the year. My big question for you guys is they've run a lot of plays on offense. The Black Shirts have been out of the field a lot, especially during that second quarter. Do you guys think the fatigue is going to get to the Black Shirts as we head into the second half?
It's a good question, Travis. Hey, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks, Travis.
So far, it's only been a 5-play difference in the total plays, 41-36. And of course, that's one of the inherent things about the fast-paced offense that Frost wants to run is you can stress your defense a little bit more. The good news is, though, that I think so far with the substitutions that have happened and just the way the game has gone, and of course Nebraska has done a good job of stopping Penn State, getting the turnovers. I don't think it's going to be a big issue in the second half because of how that first half has played out. Obviously, halftime hits at a good point, so I don't know if I'm too worried about the black shirts now.
Yeah.
And remember, I think Penn State's best way to move the ball is running, and I don't know if they're going to be able to do that in the second half.
Yeah, I think that what it comes down to, it's a good question. Nebraska so far, the fewest plays that they have in a drive is 3, and that was on a drive in which they scored a touchdown. So that was the Xavier Betts drive. So Nebraska has not had a 3-and-out, obviously. Only 1 punt so far. I think where you start to worry about Nebraska's defense is if Penn State is able to move the ball down the field on the first drive, they get a touchdown. Nebraska quickly goes 3-and-out, or they 4 or 5 plays, whatever it is, and then Penn State does it again. That's where you really start worrying about it, because Penn State does have a pretty big time of possession advantage right now, 18-48 versus 11-12. But I agree with you. I think that's one of those things where I would start becoming concerned if the first 2 to 3 total drives, so a couple of possessions for Penn State, 1 or 2 possessions for Nebraska, 3 to 4 drives total. If that goes against Nebraska, that's when I start worrying about it. But as of this point, I'd feel pretty good. Not to mention you got the 3 touchdown lead, so you got multiple scores in hand that you don't even have to worry about at this point in time.
One quick thing here. This is regardless of what you guys were talking about. I have a good friend who is a Penn State alum. Actually, used to work for us at down in Hastings, and we talked about last week Husker fans checking out from watching games. He's completely checked out. He said, "Good thing the Masters is on." They have completely checked out on the season. So
picked the wrong day to do it, man. They're playing well.
Yeah, well, no, I mean he's a Penn State fan though. He's a Penn State.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Pick the right day to do it because they're not playing well.
Husker fans have stuck with this. This has been 10, 15, 20 years of hardship. Penn State, 3 games, and they're already checking out. So it depends, I guess, on the fan base. So
hey, I want to ask you a question, Travis. I had this theory earlier this week because we were wondering about the wind and what it would be like in the stadium. Mm-hmm. Do you think there is a difference in how the wind swirls in the stadium with 80,000 people in it versus nobody in it? Because I have a theory that with no friction there with human beings and, of course, maybe added heat, that maybe it changes the wind patterns. Is there any truth to that?
It could. Yeah, I'm guessing the heat may have something to do with it. One thing to mention, I mentioned this to, is it Caleb Henry? I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
KLN.
Yeah, KLIN.
He talked about the winds, the south winds affecting the kick a little bit. The winds are going to start to turn more westward here. A cold front's about ready to come through Lincoln there. I don't think they'll get too strong, though, this afternoon during the latter portions of the game. Out west, out in the Panhandle, western Nebraska. For you. No, Kimball, Nebraska had a wind gusts up around 60 miles per hour. I don't think that comes into play till tonight, though. So I think that the really nasty winds will hold off till after the game. So,
Travis, thanks for joining us and your expertise. We appreciate it. Also, Kendall from the Top Fan Show is also
Top fan.
Top fan.
How's it going,
So good first half so far.
Hey, Kendall.
It is, but the third down conversion they're allowing 50%, and then still getting less than 50% out of the offense is still a struggle. You have to find a way to get them off the field and stay on the field just a little longer. We're 3 for 7, they're 4 for 8, and I think that is going to be the continuous key. Can we better those numbers compared to what we've seen this year?
Well, we will find out. Kendall, thanks for joining us. Of course, you can hear the boys during the pregame show on Saturdays in the morning and also after our show at 6 starting on Tuesdays.
By the way, second half line as it's just about to get going. Penn State minus 3.5. The total sits at 26.5 for the second half of this one between Nebraska and Penn State.
Man, that went fast.
Yeah, it did.
Hey, that went really fast. That felt faster than not Wisconsin. Who did we play in the first game? Ohio State.
Ohio State, yeah.
Hey, don't forget, I believe it's Michael and Damon today on Big Red Overreaction on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and the Zone mobile app right after the game with your calls. They'll hear from Scott Frost and a whole lot more, so make sure you tune in to 1620 The Zone. Josh and I, of course, will be back on Monday for another live edition of the program. We really appreciate you joining us here for our second halftime gridiron program special, whatever it is we want to call it, of the season. And we'll see. Keys to the second half, Nebraska's just got to play smart. If they continue to play smart, they're going to be fine. But
don't turn the ball over. Like, that's the thing.
Yes.
Penn State gave Nebraska some points. Don't do that if you're Nebraska. I think that they can hold serve. Look, man, all you got to do is not get outscored by 22 points in the second half. That is possible. Just do not turn the ball over. And, man, it would be really nice, especially that first drive of the half, if they were able to just methodically move the ball down the field, take up like half the quarter, and I think Husker fans are feeling pretty good.
Absolutely. All right, second half is about to begin. For Josh, I'm John. Don't forget Big Red Overreaction on 1620 The Zone after the game. Also on 1019 The Keg for those of you driving back to – oh, wait, there's not going to be anyone driving back. Never mind. But
Google, no matter how you receive it, is it still AM radio? It's still AM radio. That's right.
It's still AM radio, and yes, I was drinking Diet Coke today, guys. All right, no beer until after the game. We'll see you later. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great one.